The Nigerian Senate suspended its rules to admit members of President Bola Tinubu's economic team into the chamber to explain what the new tax reform bill entailed. The chairman of the Presidential Committee on Fiscal Policy and Tax Reforms, Mr. Taiwo Oyedele, explained to the Senate that the federal government has nothing to show for more than 60 taxes and levies collected across the country, emphasizing that the nation's current fiscal system hinders growth. Now, according to Oyedele, the federal government intends to halt the practice of forcing Nigerian businesses to pay taxes even when they incur losses. He stressed the need to scrutinize the system through key reforms, stating that the government should focus on taxing investments rather than capital or poverty.
Now, the bill has generated controversy, with some northern leaders calling for its withdrawal. The governors of the 19 northern states rejected the bill, particularly the proposed amendment to the distribution of value-added tax to a derivation-based model. Now, despite the backlash, President Tinubu has refused to withdraw the bill, instead urging the National Assembly to allow the legislative process to take its course. Now, joining us is public affairs analyst Taiwo Oyedele. Good morning, and thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Good to have you. I think we probably should just start off with, the main controversy surrounding this bill. When it was put forward at first, there's many people who celebrated it, until this pushback from the northern governors and northern leaders started. So help us simplify really what the controversy is about. Is it a lack of understanding of the benefits of this bill from northern leaders, or do they have a legitimate concern that is causing this pushback?
Well, there's a lot of numbers involved, but we'll try and make it as simple as possible. The challenge for northern governors basically can be put at reading. Let me repeat myself. The challenge for northern governors is basically put at reading. It's that simple. If they would only read what was being presented, they will get and understand.
Okay, Taiwo, I think we do have some network connectivity issues there. Hopefully you get to sort that out and join us again. We're here. We would love to really have this conversation. I was going to ask what the situation, the current... all right, if you could hear us, go ahead, please.
Hear me?
Yes, we can. Go ahead.
Hello?
We can hear you. Go ahead.
So now, what they need to do is to read, just simply read, or have someone read it for them. What the presidency has tried to do is try to create a more efficient, and fairer tax regime in this country. Why are they pitched against it? One of the issues that affects them, and let me start from the two issues that they need to understand. The first one, because they believe they're getting less in this new tax reform than they were getting before. That is the basics, but it's not true. The first thing is the structure of our taxes, as Taiwo Oyedele and his team have looked at, is saying that currently the bulk of taxes is collected from the poorest people in Nigeria. Okay? You need to understand that. Now, if you look at our development goals, our development, projects, especially given that the federal government has not been able to fund capital expenditure, which is where infrastructure, education, major transport, and health infrastructure is built. What they're saying is that, first of all, anybody earning below 25 million a year, that's businesses, will not have to pay company income tax. That covers about 90% of the businesses in this country. So it means businesses anywhere in the country, especially the north, that doesn't have much commercial activity, they will not have to pay tax. So that is the first benefits to any governor, to his citizens. What you're saying is people who are starting business, you have some relief from the federal government until you become profitable. Ask yourselves, first of all, how many of you in business make up to 25 million naira a year? And if you file your taxes, right, you will know that some of these people who book as, people who sell small things, small traders and shops, they will not come to this point. That is a big relief. That's the first point. As regards payee, those who are in the public and the private sector, anybody earning less than $1 million naira, which is also the bulk of staff that work in these places, will not have to pay payee anymore. Now, coming to the VAT. The VAT, what they simply said was, in the old regime or in the current regime, about 3 to 4 states collect the bulk of about 60% of the VAT, which is Lagos, Rivers, Kano, and I think Osun. Why? Because under the current system, the federal government collects about 50%, states about 55%, and then the local government 33%. Now, the distribution is based on the fact that many companies, especially those who have national presence in terms of consumption, they file their tax in Lagos, okay? And if they file, let's say, a telecommunications company or a beverage company, when they file in Lagos, Lagos State gets the bulk of that tax. But the truth is, that tax was not derived only in Lagos. They have consumption taking place, let's say, for example, telecommunications, either data or airtime. People are consuming it across the various states. Same thing with beverage consumption. Same thing with maybe companies that produce plastics, companies that produce fans, ACs. Do you understand? Companies that fuel is being consumed. If your head office is in Lagos, what they're saying now is that they want every state to get credit for what is consumed in that state, which is what is supposed to drive the economic situation like it is done in other countries, in the sense that if you have more economic consumption in your state, it will drive the amount of VAT that comes to you. This is what the governors are not listening to. They've even restructured the sharing, okay, to ensure that it doesn't place so much emphasis on this old derivation, which doesn't take into account location and population count. It reduces it so that there's some level of equity. Now, like I said, who would be against that? But because the northern governors, to a large extent, feel that if they put in place this new system, that they will be on the losing end, they've been kicking back against it. One thing I must state is that, as you can see, both at the Senate and at the House of Reps, there is very high-level debate. It is a good thing, because this is what a democracy is about. This is what we expect our National Assembly to be doing across all the contentious issues, starting from the, the concurrence list and the recurrence list. These are the level of the constitutional reform. This is the level of debate we need for them to have on a daily basis, so that everybody gets to understand how we are governed and where there's fairness or where there needs to be reform. I like what is happening, and I think it should continue until a full understanding of all the contentious issues that have bogged this nation down are dealt with.
Mr. Corey, help us highlight exactly how northern states will actually benefit, from these changes that they're failing to see.
Yeah, so like I said, let me use how many states? Let me use Kano, Bauchi, Borno states, and even Zamfara. Now, under the old system, right, people who buy airtime and buy plastic products, buy food products from companies that are headquartered in Lagos. You know, there are many multinationals.
Yes.
Who in the FMCG, the
fast-moving consumer goods and the like.
Consumer goods companies. You know, many of them have their headquarters in Ikeja, they have their headquarters in Agbara, they have their headquarters, beverage companies in Igomu, they have their headquarters in Oshodi. Now, what is that when they file their tax, the tax goes to Lagos State, okay? Simply because the headquarters is here. Now, what the new system is saying is that, no, that is an improper and incorrect way of distributing the tax, because a lot of the money that those companies made, the consumption took place, remember,
elsewhere.
VAT is a consumption tax. Yes. It took place in Bauchi, it took place in Kano, it took place in Zamfara and Adamawa. So let those companies file in accordance to where their consumption took place, so that the states that the consumption took place will get the benefit, will get the credit.
Yeah.
That's where the benefit comes from. So
Yeah.
if you have more commercial activity in your state, you gain more. This is what the governors are not listening to.
And so it
Now,
should encourage
the truth is,
it should encourage these state governors to make their states more able to consume more. Isn't that what it is?
Attractive.
More attractive, and be able to generate more revenue so that they can increase the level of consumption to earn more of the taxation. Isn't that what it is?
Yes, yes. And there's also another contentious spot that has not been brought up. Even in the sharing, right? Currently, alcohol consumption is prohibited in some Sharia states, okay? Now, some of them, when they do the sharing, it still comes to them.
Yeah.
So some of them feel that if they correct this, what they do is to reduce what they have. So the point is this, right? State governors need to now, for the first time, get serious about driving business in their states. That is something they are not doing. And we need to get to that point, because what we were used to was a lazy form of, when the federal government collects taxes, the old allocation formula, which literally based on, okay, let's see how everybody can get, one thing, whether you were the one that produced it or not, does not come to account. That's what they've been used to. That has to change, because that does not enable a fair administration of tax. Unfortunately, many of them don't want something that will make them work or something that will make them fairer. But let's keep the debates going so that we get to a point of actual actualization.
All right. I want to thank you so much for joining us. I mean, there's a lot to say on this, but I'm just going to hold my peace until possibly we have another guest join us on this topic, because I never appreciated the tax reform bill until I took my time to go through it. I can tell you that I am a staunch supporter of the tax reform bill, and I don't want to explain why, because time wouldn't be a friend. Thank you for joining us. We'll get to have you again, maybe live in the studio, so we can break this down. Thanks for your time.
All right, thank you.